Hello everyone, welcome to Chatelaine Makes. I'm Lorraine. This is going to be a little difficult for me because I have a lot of glare on my glasses, so I took them off. I have some finished objects and a WIP that I'm working on. So these were finished this year. Now, this one here is, I just still have to weave in my ends. Oh, I have another WIP. Another FO except for sewing in the ends, and I'm not sure where that is. I'll have to show you that next time. So this was a test knit I did for Tori from Pauly's Crochet Creations. So it is one of her new hats up to here. This part here is supposed to be a front post back post ribbing, and I don't like the crocheted ribbing, so I knitted my ribbing on. Now this is a small hat, and like I said, I still have to weave in my end and the inside one. I can feel the. This was made with I think it's called the Ogo. The like the donut or crescent shaped, crescent formed yarn with different colors. Came out a while ago, so I got one gifted to me. Now I'm talking pre-COVID. Then I got this given to me, so I didn't know I wasn't sure what to make with it, so I had it left sitting in my stash, and I pulled it out. And this is no color control. So, excuse me. So this is her hat. I will put a link to her channel down in the description box. So I finished that off. Now I had done it quite a while ago, and it was sitting there, like I said. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the brim part, so I got that done. Now I'm trying to get together a box for my son, and I had knitted a hat, and my husband took it or claimed it as his. So the first one I did was too big. And that one was one I made for my husband using a different yarn. And it turned out too big. So I made a second one. And he wears that one. Then I decided I needed to make one for my son who is in Edmonton. And it's pretty cold there. So I had made this one. Now these are hand knit. So it has, and I always do extra long ribbing so you can fold it up and you have double layer over your ears. So it does have a different pattern on it, and it's got three different, no, just the two. Nope, two plus the garter. So this part here is one part. Then we have the garter. And then this part is a little different. See if you can get that there. Now, I hope you can see it because I can't see without my glasses on how well this shows up. So that's that. Now my husband claimed this one. So I started another one for my son. And I'll show you that after because I'm still working on it. Then I seen this earlier this month. I seen someone made a headband, or like mine is white, so I would say it's more of an ear warmer than a headband. we're using a centro and put a braid. So this was my version. This is in a pink, and now this is a great big, it's a 4-weight, I think it is a red heart, and I got it like 10-15 years ago, and it was like a big 1-pounder. Walmart had them on sale just after Christmas, so I had picked up some different colors, and this was one of the pinks. And they used a heart-shaped carabiner, and I couldn't find a heart-shaped carabiner, so I used a hair tie. And not a regular hair tie. I used, mine are kind of like the t-shirt kind, and it's pink, and I just loosely, just bunched it up. So that's what I wore Valentine's Day. And I will show you my sweater that I made. Now I did a short video, but if you haven't seen it, and I did show it while I was working on it, I will also put the link to Feride's channel down in the description box, because I used her tutorials as a guideline, because there is no pattern. Feride does not use patterns. She's been knitting since she was like under 10, I think, and she's in her 50s now. Excuse me a minute. I have a bit of a cold. I've had a bit of a cold for a bit. A little longer than a bit. And it comes and goes. And luckily it started to go down towards my chest, but I've been lucky because it has not gone into my chest. So, now I used, when Spinrite had their big tent sale, and Spinrite is in Ontario. I'm in Alberta, so I had to do the online thing. Now I used I think it was Colorama Halo, pretty sure it was. I think it was called Rosemary Frost. Now I've discussed this previously. I don't have the yarn band with me here, because I don't have the leftover yarn. I made mine a little larger than my size. Plus I made it a little longer. And the only color controlling I did was on my sleeves. Here, you can see here, so this part is done with the yoke, okay? Then this part was the sleeve. Now, I used one whole cake, and then I went and I did my sleeves before I continued on. When I went to my second cake, I started with the lighter one, because I did not want to go from this to really dark. So, and it does gradually darken. Now this has been washed a few times. First time I washed it, it's been washed a couple times. First time I washed it under delicate, and then I laid it out to dry. The last time I washed it, I just did a quick wash, so I didn't use the delicate cycle, but that's all I had in there. And the reason why I used that instead of the delicate was when I used the delicate, there was a lot of water left in my sweater. So I had to squish it. So being the quick, it did do the rinse or did the spins. And then I put it in the dryer because, like I said, it was a little larger for me. Put it in the dryer, but I used a medium setting, not high temp. And so then that was fine. And does it ever puff up nice and it is so soft. So here is my other sleeve. Okay, so here you can really tell. I think this is one I showed. You can really tell from, maybe not, from here to this where I started. So this is the beginning of the cake where it's really light. Now this is a very, very, very pale pastel shade of green. Then once I didn't finish my sleeves, so here's my other sleeve. Yep, this is the one I showed. Okay, so then when I finished my sleeves, I went and I worked some more on the body. Like I said, I made it longer. Once I was done with that, I added a like a button band, but I did not put buttons on the sweater at all because I didn't want to, because I don't like doing up buttons on a sweater. So and I did my short rows at the top of the yoke. Now some patterns called to it after the yoke, but I prefer mine to be above. So you can see here that the back is higher than the front. So this is how my sweater turned out. And I will show the back in a minute because the back you can see better for the colors, for the fading. So it starts out really pale and then it gets a little darker. So that is my, now this was, this was actually my New Year's Day cast on. And I was finished sometime on the 18th. So it took me less than 3 weeks, which was pretty good considering. Now, I haven't really done a lot of sweaters in my knitting history. And when I do a sweater, I'm trying a sweater, not pullover. Some people sweater, cardigan. Same thing here. I usually do, now this is the first top down that I've done. I normally do from the bottom up, and I do the back and the front together up to the underarm, and then I divide it. So this was something new for me. I'm pleased with how it turned out, how quick it was to knit up. Now, because on Feride's tutorials, and I'm not sure which tutorials that I like, I couldn't say I used this tutorial and that one because I looked at a bunch of different ones. And I had them say, I have a few different ones saved onto a playlist, but and I rewatched them, so it was kind of hard to figure out, okay, this is one I used. And they're not in the order on my in my playlist. So Feride has a lot of tutorials. Like I said, she doesn't use a pattern. She knows from experience and repetition. And she just finished a different. Now, when she does them, oh, this is where I was going with this. Now, the one tutorials, the tutorials that I used for the one sweater, excuse me, or bolero that she did the tutorial on was a small or an extra large. Now, I'm a large and extra large. So I had to tweak it. So some of the time used for the 18 days was trying to figure out how many stitches I needed, what size ish that I wanted to have, the measurements for as far as like lengthwise inches and the width. So some of the time was spent for that. So I would say probably actual knitting was more like 14, 15 days. Now, that's calendar days. I'm sure in there was a day or two where I was not feeling up to knitting, so I didn't do it. So I don't really time my projects. The only reason why I know how long it took me to do this was because it was a New Year's cast on. I liked working with the yarn. Now I used a lifelines because at one point, like I had to frog it. So if you're doing big projects like that, put your lifelines in, mark down on a paper where what specific row or area in your pattern that you are. So if you have to frog it back to the lifeline, you know where to start again. And I usually have a piece of paper and I mark on the paper, start at this row. Put it, or I have the pattern and I use pencil and I put an arrow, start here. Because there's nothing worse than being almost finished, and especially if you're doing some kind of pattern in. Now this was just straight knitting and purling. So stockinette stitch. But if you're doing a pattern that's textured or cables or something along those lines, you need to know where you are in the pattern to continue on. If you miss one row, it throws everything off. Sometimes it's not that noticeable, but it can make a big difference in the look. So make sure to use lifelines. I use sock yarn, scraps to put my lifelines in. And I have a container that once I'm done with the lifeline, I roll it up and I put it in the container for another project or for to use later on in the same project or whatever. But it is to your benefit to use a lifeline. It doesn't take that long to do. Years ago when I put the lifeline in, I had to use a needle and I just did so many stitches, took the needle and threaded it through, did some more, same thing. Nowadays, there's a little hole on your needle, and that hole is to thread, put the thread through, the yarn through. And like I said, I use the sock yarn because it is thin and it will fit in that hole. If if it doesn't and you want it, then you can always do like I used to do. And I still do that sometimes because I want a thicker yarn as my lifeline, because if I'm using like a bulky yarn, putting a sock weight yarn through as lifeline, it kind of gets hidden away. So I still do the other. Most of the time I will use the sock thread and the sock yarn and thread it through the knitting needle, the hole, and just knit my next row. Once I'm done with the row, I spread it out, and then I take my yarn off. So I cut my sock yarn if I'm starting with the fresh, say I didn't have any scrap sock yarn long enough to put a lifeline in, then that's what I do is I take the sock yarn, I thread it through, and then I knit my row, and then I spread it out so that the lifeline goes past from one end to the other. And I like to leave at least a 4-inch tail on both sides. So like I said, I spread it out, and then I have like maybe even 6 inches on each end in case it gets caught up and then I lose my lifeline, and my lifeline's no good because it's only through on one end and lost somewhere in between. So that's what I do. So that's just my recommendation. Highly recommend it. Now it's up to you what yarn you use for your lifeline, but just saying that's what I do. Now, because my husband claimed the gray one that I made for my son, I started another one. Now I tried this on my Centro. My Centro does not like this yarn for some reason. I think this is Brunette Premium. I couldn't tell you what shade it is because I don't have the ball band. I don't know, it's somewhere. But this is a brown, like a brownish shade. Now what I did was, now I'm doing these on regular circular needles. And I googled to see how to do it for an adult. Now it said to cast on with knit needles, not machine. So it said to cast on 100 stitches, and then you do until your tube reaches certain length, and then you just continue. Then you just do finish off the way you would normally do if you were using the Centro. So I started my provisional cast on with the pink here, you can see, and then I switched to my brown, and I am using, now it said a 16-inch circular needles. I am using interchangeable. So I went with a small, you can see it's not very, so it's maybe a 12-inch. And I've got the biggest one, because this is just a small set that I bought from Antoinette of Hookin and Stitchin Island Style when she was having her yarn destash sale a while back. So I picked these up. Now these are 6mm. And that's what I'm using. These are squared off knit needles. They are nice. So I don't know if you can see that or not. So it's square, it's not round. Get that up higher. These are really nice to work with. So that's what I'm doing. And you need the long tail, so so it is long. I prefer to have it a little longer than what I actually need because sometimes you miscalculate, and I usually just eyeball, and then it's too short, and then you got to add another piece. You don't get the same effect. So that's what I'm working on right now. I haven't really done a whole lot. I haven't done any crocheting at all this year. I am still trying to decide if I want to do the mystery knit along or crochet along from Expression Fiber Arts. I did start 2024. I did start both knitting and crocheting. One of them was in the round. I don't like that. So I just didn't finish. Then the other one, I think the crochet one, I got my yarns together, what I wanted to use, my colors, and I was having trouble getting it started. So I got the whole pattern once it was all finished, but I haven't made it. So like I said, I'm still deciding on whether I want to do the mystery alongs or not. I think the one that I do have the clues for is a blanket, and I don't really make blankets. Now, saying that, I've done a temperature blanket in 2020, and I did a temperature blanket, memory one for my parents, and for the year that they were married, for their first year. So what I did with that was I started with the temperature for the day that they were married. No, I don't think I did. I started with the day after. And I did the whole year. And then for the border, I used the actual temperature for the wedding day. And before that, and I made that maybe early 2000s. Yes, I did because it was for their 50th wedding anniversary, which was in 05. Or was it? Anyways, so that's maybe like I made a few lap gowns, and that's it, because for vendors, blankets don't sell that well. You do not get the worth out of them, the dollar value. I mean, if you sell them for the cost of the yarn, you're lucky. So I don't do them. And I've got enough throws or whatever that I don't need to make anymore. So I didn't. I don't know if I'm going to do that one. I mean, you could make it smaller and use it as a shawl, but I'm not really a shawl person either. And I don't know how well shawls will sell here. Some places they sell well, but I really haven't seen any vendors around when I've gone to markets or when I've been in markets and I've walked around a couple of times during the shows or during the markets. And like I try to walk around once during the market. Now I can do that if my husband is with me. If I'm by myself, I have to do it either before the market starts or once it's finished if I'm lucky and people still haven't torn down their taken down their stuff yet. But I really haven't seen any. And like I have a bunch of scarves that I have marked down to $5, and I haven't really sold any of those for a long time. So, like I said, I haven't decided if I'm going to do the mystery alongs or not. I mean, it's nice because you've got something to do. Plus, you have that anticipation of what it's going to look like when it's done because you don't know. You don't know what it is. You don't know how it looks. So, like I said, I haven't decided. I have no idea. Anyways, I'm getting way off topic here. So, this is all I've done, and that's about it. And we've had a fairly mild winter. Now I'm in southern Alberta. We do get some Chinook weather come off the foothills. Now I am quite a ways from the foothills. I'd say probably like 4 hours. It's like 3 hours ish from Calgary. So sometimes we get in the Chinook coming and it gets warm. Well, we had our warm spell and now we're in the cold weather again. It's very cold, like minus 20s and minus high teens. But we get spoiled. We get used to the warmer weather and the mild weather. And it'll be like that for a while. And then all of a sudden, it's cold. And we complain. So, we're having our cold spell. But it's starting to warm up. So, it's not as cold. But it's still very cold. We've got some warmer weather coming ahead in this upcoming week. Which is nice. I'm worried about my mom. Because it's colder. She's north of me, and it's like central. It's very cold, and she has to worry about the pipes freezing because she lives in a mobile home. So, I mean, it's protected underneath. They have the heat tape and that, but she's still got to worry about it, the pipes freezing. So she has to crank up the heat. So of course it's hot in in the house, but it's like it's colder down below. But I worry about her, and like I worry about their pipes freezing. So, but the weather is the weather, so you can't do anything about it except for complain. And that doesn't help anybody. So, anyways, like It was like when I started this video, it was minus 20. Um, and that's centigrade. I'm not sure what it is now because I can't see. Because I don't have my glasses on because the glare was awful. So, but I hope everyone has a good week. Today is Saturday, the 21st. Yep. Because Valentine's Day was on Saturday. Anyways, enjoy your week. Stay warm if it's cold where you are. And until next time, and hopefully it won't be as long in between. Till next time, this is Lorraine Chatelaine Makes saying, don't forget to stop and smell the coffee and the flowers. Bye for now.